breaking. This is Emmy Award-winning KCAL 9 News at 10.
They're paid to protect your rights, but are often caught violating them.
He was choking, he cut my circulation off, and thought he was going to kill me.
Tonight, we go undercover
I want to know if I can get a complaint form
to see what happens when you bring your beef with a badge to the men and women in blue. Police corruption, planted evidence, wrongly accused. The scandals have dominated Southland headlines.
Tonight, we turn our sights on law enforcement. Our David Goldstein spent weeks undercover. He is here now with his exclusive up-close investigation, Beef with the Badge. David?
Well, Carrie and Pat, state law says that every police agency in California must have established procedures in place to investigate complaints by citizens, and they're required to make those procedures public. That's the law, but we went undercover to find out if the officers are following the rules or making up their own to try and prevent complaints from being filed. What would happen if you were a victim of police misconduct?
He went right for my throat with both hands and started choking me. And he was choking, he cut my circulation off, and thought he was going to kill me.
Or you were just someone who came in contact with an officer who acted unprofessionally.
And he just seemed to have an attitude, a very discourteous attitude. And during that process, I smelled what I thought was alcohol.
In most cases, you'd have to go to the police to complain about the police. How cooperative would they be?
The attitude was that they really didn't want to hear the kind of complaint I had.
We wanted to find out what would happen. On 5 consecutive nights, we sent tester Doug Jones into 31 police stations in the area.
I wanted to know, what do I do to file a complaint?
Jones works for the Police Complaint Center, a national police watchdog group.
This explains our complaint procedure.
Wearing a hidden camera, he only asked for the procedures to file a complaint, never actually following through.
I want to know if I can get a complaint form so I can take with me.
Many departments were cooperative.
Here you go, sir. I'll give you a couple of them.
Some were even upfront about past practices that have changed.
There was a time when people would come in and go, that's it, you're out of here. That time has passed.
But others clearly violated their own department's policy by refusing to provide a complaint form.
I'm just saying this was an incident that happened before, but I'm just ticked off about it. I don't feel like getting into that. That's the reason.
I mean, there's no reason. I can't give you a complaint.
But it's just a form.
Get into it. I know what it is, but I need to know what it's about.
And some, like San Bernardino Sheriff's Department Corporal Ray Austin, had an intimidating message.
Because the way it works, they'll interview you with a tape, and then they'll talk to the officer to do an investigation. And if your allegation is unfounded, the officer has the right to sue you.
It was a Wednesday night in San Bernardino when Jones went into Sheriff's headquarters.
I want to file a complaint, but is there like a form, something I can take with me?
They wouldn't give him a form without first divulging information to the supervisor, Corporal Austin.
Do y'all have something that I can take with me on the go? You know what I'm saying?
It's all done here.
I can't do it even anonymously or something like that because I don't want to get into all of the
names. Send in a letter
names.
if you want.
But that's not the policy of the San Bernardino Sheriff's Department. It states that any citizen can take a complaint form home, and they can fill it out anonymously.
I can't do it even anonymously.
We showed the tape to Sheriff's Captain Richard Beamer, who said the corporal's actions violated policy.
It's our purpose to let anybody have a form who wants one.
He didn't get one here.
He did not get one here, no. And he could have gotten one here. I think the corporal may not be familiar with the process.
But that's not all the corporal wasn't familiar with.
Everything that we do now is recorded.
He went on to warn our tester that deputies are mandated to carry audio tape recorders.
It is mandatory that they use them.
Implying that the tapes are officially filed away.
Each night they go in there and they place it in a slot for that night.
And if the stories don't match, Jones can be sued.
And if your allegation is unfounded, the officer has the right to sue you.
Is it mandatory that the deputies carry recorders?
It is not mandatory.
There is no mandatory San Bernardino policy covering recorders, although deputies can carry them if they wish. and the tapes are not kept in any official capacity unless they're pertinent to an investigation. Officers can sue, but the warning isn't one the department condones. Is that the way you would want one of your people to come out and basically telling someone this is the way it works?
No, it is not the way I would want it to work.
Jones left feeling as if he was being threatened into not filing a report.
To me, that seemed a little intimidating. If they have a problem looking at the way I see it, then they may come back on me to want to file charges.
And even the captain agreed.
I can see how somebody who was listening to the corporal would feel intimidated.
After seeing the results of our test here at Sheriff's headquarters in San Bernardino, we wanted to find out if the same attitude existed at other sheriff's facilities. So the very next day, we sent our tester to Victorville.
What's the complaint process?
Again, Jones was told he wouldn't get a complaint form without giving his name and other information. This time, Sergeant Pat Daly made it seem like our tester was the criminal.
We have to take names to know how this is going. We just don't give people no names. And I would feel that you got something to hide, and if you're this suspicious or this secret.
And when Jones remains reluctant, the sergeant draws his own conclusion.
We're arrested before, right?
Why would your sergeant draw that conclusion that he's been arrested before, or try to even elicit a response from that?
I can't answer for the sergeant. I don't know.
I asked Jones if he thought it was the color of his skin, but after testing dozens of departments around the country, he says intimidation by officers when people file complaints crosses all racial lines.
It's really an us and them kind of thing that I've noticed. It's happened to people of color. It's happened to white folks, Latinos, Asians. So really, it's not I'm inclined to say it's not a matter of just black and white. Hey, I want to file a complaint against one of your deputies. What do I do?
Well, after we showed the undercover video to San Bernardino Sheriff's officials, they issued a directive to all supervisors, ordering them to follow the proper procedures and clarifying that everything should go by the book. Well, tomorrow we continue our undercover investigation with more police departments, and we'll show you where our tester was again prevented from filing an official complaint. Pat?
Afraid, intimidated, threatened. That's what some people feel when they try to file complaints against police. We went undercover to see for ourselves, to find out what really happens when you have a beef with a badge. David Goldstein here now with his up-close investigation. David?
Well, Kerry, can the police police themselves? That's the question we wanted to answer when we went undercover into nearly 36 police stations. We were trying to find out if the officers were cooperative when someone had a complaint or breaking their own department's policies. A police station can be an intimidating place.
I want to know if I can get a complaint form.
Especially when you're trying to file a complaint against a police officer.
If I want to file a complaint.
We sent tester Doug Jones into 31 police stations in the area.
I wanted to find out, what the procedures were on filing a complaint.
He never filed a complaint, only asking how he would go about doing it. Many departments, like Torrance Police, were helpful.
This explains our complaint procedure.
They not only had a pamphlet explaining the process, but the watch commander actually sounded like he welcomed complaints.
The whole idea of a personal complaint process is to make sure that law enforcement controls their conduct. The community is our quality control. They tell us when we're doing things right, doing things wrong.
The Bell Police Department also followed policy.
You can mail it or bring it back.
We then traveled to neighboring Huntington Park, and it seemed that word traveled with us.
I want to know, if I want to file a complaint against one of your officers, what do I do? Is there a form or something?
Weren't you just at Bell Police Department?
Sergeant Michael Craven was apparently alerted by Bell Police, but instead of realizing it was a test, he proceeded to violate his own department's complaint policy.
But I'm just ticked off about it. I don't feel like getting into that. That's the reason.
I mean, there's no reason. I can't give you a complaint.
But it's just a form.
We're not going to get into it. I know what it is, but I need to know what it's about. So if you're not happy with me, then you can come back tomorrow morning and talk to my chief of police.
Jones didn't want to provide information and didn't have to, according to police policy. But Sergeant Craven didn't know or didn't care.
You have to let me know where it occurred. If you don't know where it occurred, how can we even investigate this then? Because if you don't know where it happened at, you don't know what day it happened at, then there ain't nothing I can do for you. Like I said, if you're not happy with me, you can take my name, it's right there, Sergeant Craven. You can come back tomorrow morning and complain to my chief of police.
We did just that.
So if you're not happy with me, then you can come back tomorrow morning and talk to my chief of police.
Assistant Chief Michael Visser viewed the tape.
Well, needless to say, I was disappointed in the fact that he didn't follow the procedure. The sergeant made a mistake. He should have given that form to the individual.
Chief Visser says it's an isolated case, but even so, the results of our test prompted an emergency training session.
I put out a memo yesterday when I found out about this, and I reminded staff and all the personnel here in the organization that what our objective is to serve people when they come here and they ask for complaints, the policy, and reinforce that.
Huntington Park wasn't alone in policy violations. The Culver City Police Department watch commander also refused to give out a form without any information.
We need to know who you are, where you live, phone number, that kind of stuff. Every time I give out a form, I have to register that with the chief's office as to who I gave it to and the nature of the complaint.
That violates the Culver City police policy. A police lieutenant told me anyone can come in and get a complaint form, and complaints can be filed anonymously, even if the forms are registered with the chief's office.
It would certainly appear to be a stonewalling effect.
If you don't know where it occurred, how can we even investigate this?
Larry Paul is a 40-year law enforcement veteran. He reviewed the undercover videotapes and says the Culver City watch commander and others who refuse to give out forms may not be ignorant of policy, but trying to protect their own.
It would appear to me that he was certainly attempting to discourage any complaints being registered through his department.
I want to know, if I want to file a complaint against one of your officers, what do I do?
The Huntington Park Assistant Chief refused to tell me if Sergeant Craven faced any disciplinary action because he violated department policy. The chief says he's not allowed to divulge that kind of information. Culver City Police were invited to respond to our report, but they refused. Tomorrow on Beef with the Badge, we travel to Rampart Division, the heart of the LAPD corruption scandal. We want to see how they dealt with our requests for complaints. And you won't want to miss this one tomorrow night at 8. Pat?
The Rampart corruption scandal revealed shocking allegations of misconduct by officers. It resulted in calls for reform and prompted changes in the way the LAPD investigates its own. Is the department following through? We wanted to find out. David Goldstein joins us now with his up-close investigation. Beef with the Badge. David.
Well, Pat, LAPD officers as well as all police in the state are required by law to take complaints from citizens. But how willing are they to police themselves? We went to the heart of the LAPD corruption scandal to find out. It's 2 a.m. on a Tuesday night. Our tester, Doug Jones, is walking into one of the most notorious police stations in the LAPD, the Rampart Division. His purpose, to ask about filing a complaint.
Hey, look, if I want to file a complaint against one of your officers, what do I do?
Your Honor, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address this court.
Rampart Division is, of course, where Rafael Perez admitted shooting innocent victims like Javier Ovando. And this is where we began our test of the LAPD complaint process.
Yeah, he said he was going to find me a complaint form.
Jones just wants a complaint form. He never actually files a complaint against any officer.
I'm going to interview you right now, or you can take one of the complaint forms. Right
Watch
there.
Commander Sergeant Michael Daly gives him the option of an interview or a form, or even two.
Here you go, sir. I'll give you a couple of them.
He even encourages the complaint. A far cry from other departments we tested.
I'm going to file a complaint against one of your officers.
In Victorville, our tester was refused a form, violating department policy.
As soon as you can explain to me what's going on, I'd be more than happy to help you out.
In San Bernardino, Sheriff's Corporal Ray Austin's conduct was found to be intimidating by his own captain.
If your allegation's unfounded, the officer has the right to sue you.
But in 4 LAPD stations, including Hollenbeck, 77th Division.
Dropped in the mail, postage paid.
And Southeast.
This is the supervisor here.
The complaint forms were easily available. The officers were helpful. Picture perfect, according to Larry Paul, a 40-year law enforcement veteran.
He was straightforward, he was honest, he appeared to be sincere. He didn't have the complainant feel intimidated, he didn't have the complainant feel as though he was going to be investigated.
Results were inconsistent. At Century Station,
Fill that out and bring it back.
at Lakewood,
I did find something that you can actually mail in.
and at Palmdale,
You just seal it and you send it to here.
Jones was able to take a complaint form home so he could fill it out anonymously. But at 2 other stations we tested, he was told there was no such form. At Lenox,
Is there a form or something I can take
No,
with
you
me?
don't fill out anything, no. It stays here at the station, we fill it out.
and Carson,
Oh, this is it?
sheriff's officials say the inconsistencies are due to the fact that most people don't ask for the mail-in form, so watch commanders aren't familiar with it.
Ideally, he should have gotten a copy of a mail-in complaint form, which we don't normally end up having to give out very often because most people want to tell their story, if on a walk-in complaint like that, to the watch commander who wants to hear it at that time so he can solve the problem.
We also tested the Long Beach Police Department. We were told that forms were only filled out by supervisors, and Jones had to put his name on any complaint.
Oh, I can't like just send one in like anonymously or just, you know.
Has to be in person. You can't file a complaint anonymously.
But the Long Beach Police Department policy clearly states you can file anonymous complaints.
Can't file a complaint anonymously.
The department's commander of internal affairs reviewed the tape and said the officer at the front desk was inexperienced.
I think probably if there was a mistake made, it was the fact that the supervisor wasn't called into the situation. And I see that more as more of a misunderstanding or an error of the mind versus anything else.
In all, we tested 31 police locations. 19 followed policy. They provided complaint forms or complied with proper procedures. 12 did not follow policy. They either had no forms or no supervisors on duty who could give us one, or they violated one or more procedures.
I want to file a complaint against one of your deputies. What do I do?
Jones, who works for the Police Complaint Center, a national police watchdog group, says the percentages are about average. They've done the tests in many major cities and say the findings usually work to improve police policies.
We do tests, and that's what we're conducting is tests, not to catch them with their pants down. I mean, there are agencies that are done very well through the test, and we'd rank them very high, and there are those that haven't. I mean, and we'd like to point those out, not to embarrass them, but to show them where they could kind of brush up and make it a little user-friendly for everybody. If I want to file a complaint,